Corn rootworm resistance to Bt rootworm traits has gotten to be a big issue over the last few years, Darren.
Well, it certainly has, and we're talking about the single trait. So just one rootworm Bt protection trait in a hybrid.
So in other words, yield guard or Herculex, something like that.
That's where we're seeing an issue where we have a single trait. Now we don't see that issue when we have stacked traits.
Yet.
So when we've got multiple traits in there, we're still doing a good job. And I heard one researcher put it this way: you've got a 1 in a million shot of a bug being resistant to a single trait. You have a 1 in a billion chance of a bug being resistant to a smart stacks.
The only problem is he's wrong. It's a lot more than 1 in a million that are actually resistant now. And you know, we're standing here in a soybean field and you say, well, you're going to rotate this back to corn, you shouldn't have any problems with rootworms anyway. Well, we do. Here's a corn leaf that just blew into our field. So there are corn fields all around this particular field, and not only are the leaves blowing in, but the rootworm beetles are coming in too. They're laying eggs, and so this next year we have rootworms, and not just rootworms. Some of them are resistant. Now certainly it's not all of them. This isn't a widespread thing. Entire country, the entire world has all these resistant rootworms, but I don't care if it's widespread or not. I know I've got an issue on my farm. I know Darren's got an issue on some of his ground. So we're not taking any chances. We're going out there with insecticide. But Darren, tell us about insecticide.
But sometimes, you know, that isn't enough, Brand. Like, okay, this year, hey, it was a tremendous drought year. Perhaps the biggest drought that anybody living today has seen. But here's what happened to me. I used a VT3 corn, and I was thinking, I'm just going to put on an insecticide. I really want this particular hybrid. It's got the disease tolerance that I'm looking for, and so I planted that hybrid. And I used a full rate of a dry insecticide, and then we just turned bone dry. We didn't get enough moisture to really get all that insecticide going and working.
Let's talk specific, Darren. I mean, we don't need to hide anything. It was a full rate of Force. Now, Force is the best product that there is. We'll tell people all the time, use Force or Aztec. That's great. Now, I don't know what you're doing over there, Darren, but I've never had any problem with full rate of Force. And in fact, just 3 years ago, when we first found the first rootworm resistant field we know of in the entire country, it was one of our neighbors, and we had just a half rate of Aztec. It didn't matter, we had half rate of Force on some of our stuff too. Same number he was planting, we didn't have an issue, he did.
Here's the key difference, we actually got some moisture. And you know, that's one thing you can't control on your farm. You don't know how much moisture you're gonna get. You may get just real small shots. Maybe you get 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch all through the year, and it's never enough to really saturate that soil. You just may not have those granules completely breaking down. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. I think 99 times out of 100, it's gonna work just fine.
Yeah, but even if it does work just fine is 80 to 90% control. Okay, so if you had a billion rootworms out there and you controlled 90% of them, is that good enough?
Well, it certainly wasn't this year. And so my strategy going forward is, all right, I'm going to switch to smart stacks. I'm going to not have that single rootworm trait. I'm going to do the 2 traits and try and approach things that way.
Are you still going to put an insecticide on?
I'm also going to put on insecticide.
That's what we're doing with smart stacks on our farm. We're using a half rate of insecticide, and in the future, I'm sure we're going to have to bump that to a full rate. Okay, so one of the other things that you need to do if you're going to hopefully prevent lots of rootworm problems in the future is spray for rootworm beetles in the summer, especially in corn on cornfields. If you want to lessen the number of bugs you have next year, control the adults before they can lay eggs this year, and you're going to have a lot fewer bugs next year.
Well, let's wrap this up. Here's our program for controlling corn rootworm. First of all, crop rotation definitely helps. If you have a 3 crop rotation, that's the best. Plant smart stacks traits. That way you have 2 different genes out there in case there's some resistance building in your area. Use a full rate of insecticide if you need it. With many people with smart stacks, they're just going to use a half rate. That's probably fine. Then in crop, you're going to spray foliar insecticide whenever you see bugs out in the field. If you see corn rootworm beetles, get them under control.
So there are resistance issues all around the country. Are we super worried about it? No, but you've got to manage things well in your farm, and that starts early on. Again, you can start with that rotation really early, but you got to pick the right variety, and you definitely want to be using some insecticide up front. So once you're past planting, you don't have any real good control options. That's the whole thing. People will call and say, well, what are our rescue options? And you know what? It's June, and by then the rootworm damage is already done. It's too late. You got to think about this stuff ahead of time.
Well, one other thing you may have to think about ahead is controlling our weed of the week. We'll explain coming up next.